There is an old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Today, I invite you to explore one of the most profound pillars of hidden wisdom, the 7 Hermetic Principles, derived from the legendary emerald tablets created by Hermes Trismegistus, also known as the Egyptian god of wisdom. Each of these principles is a key, and together they form the master key that opens all doors to the Temple of Mysteries. This video is a compilation of 7 videos, each explaining one of the principles in detail so that, by the end, you too will hold the master key. The Hermetic Principles are the foundation upon which this universe was created. Understanding these principles is understanding how the universe functions. However, those who master these principles become the masters of their own reality. You will realize that these principles complement each other and that their order is not random. The principle of mentalism. Today, we will delve into one of the fundamental pillars of Hermeticism, the first of the 7 Hermetic Principles, known as the principle of mentalism. It states that everything is mind, the universe is mental. This seemingly simple phrase carries a universe of implications. What does it truly mean to say that everything is mind? Does it mean that the universe is, in the end, a mental construct, and our experiences are mere reflections of our thoughts? Today, we will explore the true power behind this principle and its confirmation in modern physics. This principle not only opens the doors to the other 6 pillars of Hermes Trismegistus, but it also reveals a secret that completely transforms our way of seeing and interacting with the universe. When we say that everything is mind, we enter into the mystery that the universe, everything that is, was, and will be, is a manifestation of the universal mind, what the Hindus call the dream of Vishnu. Each of us is an intrinsic part of this manifestation, so let us explore this deeply. For once we understand the first law, the doors to the mysteries of the spirit begin to open. To begin, it is essential to understand what the term mentalism means. According to the Kybalion, the most well-known book on Hermeticism, mentalism reveals that reality is not physical, nor made of solid, tangible matter as we imagine it. On the contrary, it is a mental construct, a creation of the universal mind, the All. Imagine that every element you see, touch, and feel is part of a vast mental projection, a vision that many associate with the concept of the Matrix. This universe, which seems so concrete to us, is a carefully crafted construction that emerges from consciousness. The ancient masters of Hermeticism teach us that there is an unbreakable connection between our individual minds and this universal mind. In other words, we are sparks of the mind of the All. When you think, create, and imagine, you are using the power of a mind that ultimately is part of universal consciousness. However, this profound thought raises a question. If we are sparks of the All, why do we feel so distant from the universal mind? What prevents us from perceiving this connection in our daily lives? The answer lies in another Hermetic axiom. Our human mind, limited by experiences, conditioning, and individual perceptions, is obscured by the illusion of separateness. Various spiritual and philosophical traditions share this idea. Buddha taught that everything we are is the result of what we think. Our mind is everything. This directly echoes the Hermetic principle. Today, science is beginning to tread a path that reveals the depths of the mind and its influence on reality. The physicist Max Planck, known as the father of quantum physics, stated, I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. The principle of mentalism finds a fascinating reflection in the famous double-slit experiment, initially conducted by the physicist Thomas Young in the early 19th century, and revisited more deeply as quantum science advanced. The experiment is simple. A particle, such as an electron, is fired at a barrier with two slits. On the other side of the barrier, there's a screen to record the particle's impact pattern. When scientists try to predict the particle's behavior, something extraordinary happens. If no one observes the electron, it behaves as a wave, passing through both slits simultaneously and creating an interference pattern like ripples on a lake. However, when a measurement is introduced to observe which slit the particle passes through, the electron chooses to behave like a particle, selecting only one slit, eliminating the interference pattern and creating a pattern that indicates a defined trajectory. This phenomenon reveals that, at the quantum level, the act of observation modifies reality. The observer seems to interfere with the essential nature of the particle, forcing it to choose a specific state. This phenomenon goes beyond materialistic understanding and opens the door to deeper interpretations of the relationship between mind and reality. The double-slit experiment confirms that observation, consciousness focused on a point, has the power to determine the state of things. And here lies the great teaching of the first Hermetic law. Reality is malleable, subjective, susceptible to the conscious mind that observes, interacts, and creates. This is what Hermes Trismegistus pointed out millennia ago. Imagine the mind as a vast ocean, where every thought, every observation, acts like a stone thrown into the water's surface, creating ripples and affecting everything around it. When you focus your attention on something, you throw that stone and create movement, transforming potential into manifestation. Like the electron that decides to be a particle instead of a wave, this is the mental power that the Hermetic principle speaks of. The first Hermetic law reveals that the mind is the key to creation. But what happens when the power of this mind, our deepest and most creative force, dissipates and weakens? We live in an era where human attention has become the most coveted resource. Our energy, once focused on conscious creation, is being manipulated and consumed. And this is not a coincidence. In a world where our ability to create reality depends on the strength of our attention, controlling where this attention is directed becomes a form of power. Modern distractions, social media, constant notifications, advertising, and an endless stream of information act as silent thieves of our mental energy. This fragmentation of the mind distances us from our creative essence and transforms us into mere reactors instead of authors of our own experiences. Studies show that excessive information and constant stimuli alter our ability to concentrate and retain information long-term, impairing our ability to maintain focus over time. The mind loses its sharpness and clarity. It's as if our mental strength were a blade, and daily distractions dull it, making it less sharp and effective. The average person's attention span is now comparable to that of a goldfish. In Hermetic teachings, attention is seen as a tool for creation. Imagine it as the concentrated light of a magnifying glass. When your attention is focused, you can concentrate all your energy on a single point, intensifying and manifesting what you desire. But when that light is scattered, we lose the power to transform and direct our path. We become passive observers, submerged in a whirlwind of superficial stimuli. In addition to fragmenting focus, modern distractions subtly shape our subconscious. Everything we see and hear, even if it seems irrelevant, leaves a mark on our minds. In the silence of our unconscious, these pieces of information accumulate, forming beliefs, fears, and behavior patterns. And, as we've seen, the subconscious is a powerful creator of reality. By understanding how the subconscious influences our reality, we can begin the process of intentional reprogramming. This practice requires patience and repetition, as the subconscious is like fertile soil that needs to be plowed, nurtured, and cared for. Positive affirmations, visualizations, and meditative practices help remove deeply ingrained beliefs and replace limiting patterns with a new vision of oneself. For example, if you seek abundance in your life, you must identify and dissolve beliefs like, "I am not worthy," or "the world is scarce." Then, through affirmations and visualizations, you plant new seeds such as, "I am worthy of abundance," and "the universe is generous." Over time, this new programming begins to manifest in reality. The principle of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. This ancient Hermetic truth, expressed in the Emerald Tablet, invites us to look beyond appearances, recognizing that the microcosm and the macrocosm are not separate entities, but two aspects of the same universal reality. The same intelligence that forms the stars also shapes the atoms within our bodies. Today, we will delve into the depth of this universal law and how it connects with the latest scientific advances, as well as the timeless wisdom of mystics and philosophers throughout history. We will explore how this principle can be applied in our lives to help us become more complete and conscious beings. This law, known as the principle of correspondence, asserts that reality, in all its dimensions, is structured in a fractal manner. It suggests that everything in the universe is connected, and each fragment of the whole reflects the entirety. For instance, the cells of our bodies carry the same genetic code that makes up the entire organism, and each cell, in a sense, is a microcosm of the body. Similarly, the movement of galaxies mirrors the motion of atoms and electrons in their nuclei, demonstrating that universal laws apply whether on astronomical or subatomic scales. The law of correspondence teaches us to view the universe as a giant mirror. If we want to understand reality, we must first look within ourselves. Just as the macrocosm affects the microcosm, our internal state influences the world around us. And here lies a powerful key. By transforming what is within, we also transform what is outside. From a spiritual perspective, as above, so below, leads us to a deep understanding of the unity of all things. Jesus Christ, in his wisdom, said, "The kingdom of God is within you." Luke. Just as the cosmos contains within it the potential for everything, the human being, within their inner microcosm, holds the seed of the divine. The human mind is both an observer and a creation of the universe. Just as the cosmic whole expresses itself in every atom, the human being is a reflection of the entire cosmos. As the Hermetic philosophy asserts, every individual is a microcosm, a small universe that, as it expands, reaches and harmonizes with the larger universe. This reveals the power and responsibility of taking care of our own mind, thoughts, and emotions. By doing so, we also care for what is outside of us. The philosopher Plotinus stated that the more one knows oneself, the more one understands the universe and what lies beyond it. This idea echoes the Hermetic principle that, to understand the cosmos, we must first uncover the universe that exists within us. Spiritual philosophy teaches that our internal state, our thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, acts as a lens through which we perceive the external world. If we are at peace, we see the world with peace. If we are in conflict, the world around us seems hostile and disharmonious. This understanding reveals that the barriers we perceive between the self and the other, or between man and the universe, are illusory. In reality, we are part of a larger whole, and what happens inside us is constantly interacting with what happens outside us. Thus, by transforming the inner universe, we adjust our relationship with the outer universe. For mystics, understanding as above, so below means recognizing that everything that exists in the cosmos also exists in potential within us. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist and scholar of symbolism, claimed that the personal unconscious of the human being is a reflection of the collective unconscious, a reservoir of images, ideas, and archetypes that shape our life experience. Just as the cosmos is in constant motion and transformation, each human's inner universe is dynamic and pulsating. By exploring this inner universe, the individual not only discovers aspects of themselves, but also connects with archetypal forces and universal truths that are part of the entire cosmos. Therefore, the spiritual journey is a return to this universal center that exists within us. Just as the principle, as above, so below, affirms the correspondence between the macrocosm and the microcosm, it also suggests an integration between spirit and matter, being and doing, the internal and the external. Paracelsus, one of the great alchemists and philosophers of nature, said that self-understanding is the first step to understanding all things. For alchemists, the ultimate goal of self-knowledge is union with the whole. By transforming our inner lead, fears, doubts, and limitations into gold, wisdom, peace, and self-mastery, we align with the divine flow of the universe. This is the alchemical process, the work of harmonizing what is above with what is below, and seeing matter and spirit as one. The principle of correspondence invites us to view the universe as a series of layers and realities that reflect each other. It suggests that there is an intimate relationship between different planes of existence, and that what happens at one level of reality has reflections, parallels, or resonances in others. In the context of the duality between spirit and matter, the second Hermetic law reveals that spirit and matter, though seemingly opposites, are in fact reflections of the same essential reality. The material world we experience is a reflection of forces, ideas, and laws operating on the spiritual plane. So matter is like a shadow or expression of the subtle laws and energies of spirit. According to the principle of correspondence, spirit is the original or causal plane, where all ideas and energies originate. Matter, then, is the reflection of that origin, shaped according to the invisible laws and patterns of spirit. Think of spirit as the source and matter as the image projected from that source. Matter exists only as a function of the presence and movement of this underlying spiritual energy. Thus, the visible world is shaped by the invisible forces of the spiritual plane, much like a statue is sculpted from an idea. This relationship between spirit and matter can be understood in nature itself. Consider DNA, an invisible structure to the naked eye, but containing all the information needed to create a complex physical organism. This relationship between DNA and the physical body is a reflection of the correspondence between spirit as the source of information and energy, and matter as the expression of that essence. By aligning our minds and intentions with spiritual laws, we can influence and shape matter according to our will. However, this does not mean controlling or manipulating material reality. It is a process of alignment. When we understand that matter is merely a densification of spirit, we realize that profound transformations occur when we operate directly on the spiritual plane, meaning at the level of our intentions, thoughts, and beliefs. An example of this is someone who desires prosperity. That abundance begins in spirit, through a mind that generates beliefs of self-esteem, confidence, and gratitude. By nurturing these spiritual and mental patterns, the reflection in the material world will inevitably manifest, even if gradually and subtly. Life is a constant dance between spirit and matter, where the goal is not to deny one in favor of the other, but to recognize and harmonize both. True alchemy, then, lies in the integration of the spiritual world with material life, recognizing that every aspect of our physical existence has a spiritual reflection, and that every spiritual experience can be lived in matter. This means that the search for meaning and purpose, often associated with the spiritual plane, must have a practical expression in our daily lives. When we cultivate the spirit through practices like self-knowledge, meditation, and introspection, we are simultaneously creating a stronger foundation for a material life that is full and aligned with meaning. Finally, the principle of correspondence reminds us that the duality between spirit and matter is at its core an illusion created by our limited perception. Both are expressions of the same universal truth. Just as light passing through a prism divides into many colors, spirit manifests in matter without losing its original essence. This understanding offers profound spiritual freedom, as we recognize that by living fully in the material plane and honoring physical life, we are also expressing spirit. The Hermetic principle, as above, so below, is not merely a philosophical or esoteric idea, but clearly and objectively manifests in the phenomena of nature. When we observe the natural world, we see that the same structure and operational patterns we find on small scales are repeated in much larger dimensions. This correspondence between the microcosm and the macrocosm is not just symbolic. It is embedded in the fundamental patterns that govern matter and energy. One of the most striking examples of as above, so below in nature is the phenomenon of fractals. Fractals are shapes that repeat at different scales and can be observed both in tiny objects and colossal structures. Fractal geometry provides evidence that the same patterns structuring the universe in its vastness are also found in the minutiae of the natural world. When we look at the universe through a fractal lens, each tiny part appears to be a smaller version of the whole. Thus, as above, so below becomes not just a philosophical metaphor, but an observable phenomenon in the natural world. The principle of vibration. Imagine for a moment that everything around you, from the solid ground beneath your feet to the fleeting thoughts in your mind, is in constant motion, in an eternal pulse of energy. Today, we dive into one of the most enigmatic and powerful laws of the universe, the law of vibration, the third Hermetic principle, which asserts that nothing is at rest, nothing is static, everything vibrates. This law, which transcends cultures and traditions, is a key to understanding the hidden workings of the cosmos. From ancient Hermetic texts to modern quantum physics, the idea that everything is in constant vibration has been a fundamental pillar for those seeking to unravel the mysteries of the universe. The law of vibration is the third of the 7 Hermetic principles, which form the foundation of the spiritual teachings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. This law invites us to recognize that movement is the essence of all creation, and there is no true solidity in anything we perceive as matter. At its deepest level, everything is made of energy, and this energy is always in motion. This perception was revolutionary for ancient thought, going beyond what could be perceived by ordinary senses. The idea that everything vibrates is not exclusive to Hermeticism. It resonates with various spiritual traditions. In Hinduism, for example, in the Vedic texts, the sound Om is considered the primordial sound, the original vibration of creation that permeates the entire cosmos. The ancient Egyptians and Greeks believed that understanding this cosmic dance was essential for achieving harmony and wisdom, as they recognized that the universe is in a constant state of flux and transformation. Heraclitus, for instance, stated that everything flows and that change is the only constant in life. For Hermeticism, vibration is the bridge between the visible and the invisible, between the physical and the metaphysical. Therefore, the law of vibration is crucial to understanding the other Hermetic laws, as it allows us to comprehend how matter, mind, and spirit are interconnected. Matter is frozen light. This material world is essentially light vibrating at an extremely low frequency. Every form of matter and energy has a specific frequency, and this frequency determines the characteristics and reality of every object, being, or thought. Today, modern physics confirms what the ancients intuited. In quantum physics, it is understood that the material world is made up of atoms and subatomic particles that are in constant movement and vibration. This incessant movement creates the reality we perceive, though it is far more fluid and impermanent than our senses lead us to believe. For Einstein, who stated that everything in the universe is energy and vibration, the material world and energy were simply different forms of the same essence. This idea is illustrated by the famous equation E equals mc squared, where matter, m, and energy, E, are interchangeable. This principle deeply resonates with the Hermetic view that everything is a vibrational manifestation of a single, fundamental essence. In summary, the law of vibration is one of the cornerstones of Hermetic cosmology, teaching us that the universe is not a collection of inert and separate objects, but a unified field of energy in constant motion. By recognizing this law, Hermetic practitioners seek to align themselves with higher vibrations, both in mind and spirit, ascending to a deeper understanding of the whole. To truly understand the law of vibration, it is essential to relate it to modern science, particularly quantum physics, which reveals how matter and energy, at their deepest core, are in constant movement and vibration. The principle of polarity. Imagine a cosmic dance where everything that exists, light and shadow, love and hate, inspiration and fear, is orchestrated by a single, universal truth. Today, we will delve into this truth, the law of polarity. Get ready to explore deeply the fourth Hermetic principle and understand how it shapes the visible and invisible universe around us. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Opposites are identical in nature, but differ in degree. This quote from the Kalianos forms the foundation of the law of polarity, the fourth Hermetic principle. This law reveals that everything in existence is interconnected by opposing poles, hot and cold, light and darkness, good and evil, positive and negative. These opposites are not enemies locked in an eternal conflict. They are complementary, like two forces in the same current that coexist to create balance and movement. This law is deeply rooted in the structure of the universe, but extends beyond the physical realm. It operates in our thoughts, emotions, and daily experiences. For instance, have you ever noticed how happiness can only be understood after experiencing sadness? These extremes are two sides of the same emotional coin. The same principle applies on the spiritual journey. What we call light could not be recognized without the shadow. The opposites not only coexist, but depend on one another to make sense. The universe is a dance of complementary forces. Thus, understanding the law of polarity is essential for understanding both yourself and the world around you. It invites us to see reality not as a battlefield of extremes, but as a cosmic fabric, where each polarity contributes to universal creation and harmony. Rather than choosing sides, we can learn to navigate between them, finding balance within the dual flow of the universe. And how do we navigate these poles? Through the law of vibration. But we will get to that. The law of polarity is not just an abstract theory. It permeates every aspect of our lives, shaping experiences, emotions, and even the simplest daily processes. When we prepare a meal, for example, we apply heat to raw, cold food. This interaction between extremes, positive heat and negative cold, results in something new, food ready to be consumed. Without this polarity, transformation could not take place. It is the balance of temperatures that ensures proper cooking, not too burnt, not too raw. Polarity also reveals itself in social and political forces. In any political system, there are opposing ideas. Conservatism and progressivism, right and left. While they may seem to be in conflict, these forces are complementary. Both are necessary to balance society, sparking change while ensuring stability. When one ideology dominates completely, the system becomes rigid or chaotic. The interaction of extremes creates dialogue and, ideally, progress. In the end, it is all part of a single spectrum. The law of polarity manifests powerfully in the realm of human emotions, where we find not just contrasts, but an intricate relationship between opposites that shape our deepest feelings. Love is expansive. It dissolves barriers, connects us, and makes us feel aligned with something greater than ourselves. Fear, its opposite polarity, is contractive. It separates us, creates barriers, and drives actions based on instincts for protection or survival. These two polarities form the foundation of all creation. The supreme alchemy is the transmutation from one polarity to another, moving from extreme fear to unconditional love. This is union with the divine. If love and fear are opposite forces that expand and contract our perception, hatred and passion are poles of energy expressing emotional intensity. Both carry fire, overwhelming feelings that either draw us towards something or push us away with great force. Hatred arises as an intense response, a destructive force that rejects and seeks to eliminate the object of its feeling. Passion, on the other hand, is equally intense but constructive. It propels us to create, connect, and explore. These two poles are interconnected. Human emotions are not static. They flow from one pole to the other, like a pendulum. The law of polarity teaches us that recognizing this oscillation is the first step toward transforming our emotional states. Polarity expresses itself in the very essence of existence. Life can only be understood because death exists, and vice versa. The leaves of a tree fall in autumn to nourish the soil in winter, allowing life to be reborn in spring. These cycles are a constant reminder of the dance between opposing poles that occurs all the time. Even the simplest decisions we make reflect the law of polarity. Every choice involves renouncing an alternative. For example, by choosing to wake up early to meditate, you renounce the comfort of sleeping longer. By opting for a spiritual path, you distance yourself from the superficiality of material life. These choices are the practical manifestation of opposites working together. There is no absolute right or wrong, only the dynamic balance between the polarities you choose to live. The foundation of all matter in the universe is the atom, and its very existence is a perfect manifestation of polarity. Protons with a positive charge, located at the atom's nucleus, represent the centralizing force that holds the structure together. Electrons with a negative charge, orbiting around the nucleus, are dynamic forces generating movement and energy. These opposites interact to create stability. Without this electric polarity, atoms could not form molecules, and the matter as we know it would cease to exist. The attractive force between protons and electrons is not just functional. It is also responsible for structuring everything, from the oxygen we breathe to the stars in the cosmos. Essentially, everything that exists in the manifested universe is energy oscillating between two polarities. The law of vibration determines where this energy lies on the spectrum, and consequently, its characteristics. One of the most fascinating examples of this polarity lies in electromagnetic waves, the basis for technologies like radio, television, the internet, and even our biological systems. Electromagnetic waves are vibrations that travel through space carrying energy. They consist of two oscillating fields at opposite poles: the electric field, positive and negative, and the magnetic field, north and south. These fields are in constant motion, creating an interaction that drives the wave forward. It is the polarity between these fields that allows energy to travel, carrying signals from one point to another, whether through light, heat, or data transmissions. The light we see is an electromagnetic wave, just like the radio or Wi-Fi signals we use daily. What differentiates them is the frequency and wavelength, both manifestations of the law of vibration, intrinsically connected to polarity. We live in a world connected by invisible networks, all based on electromagnetic waves. The duality between the electric and magnetic fields is the engine that sustains all this technological infrastructure. When you use your smartphone or computer, electromagnetic signals are constantly being sent and received. Satellites orbiting Earth operate on the same principles to transmit radio, TV, and GPS signals. Even the electricity that powers our devices is a direct manifestation of polarity, constantly alternating between positive and negative charges in what we call alternating current, AC. This continuous cycle enables the efficient transmission of energy. The law of polarity, in harmony with the law of vibration, is a powerful key to the conscious creation of reality. While polarity reveals the two extremes of a spectrum of possibilities, vibration is the driving force that oscillates between these poles. When we understand how these laws operate together, we gain the ability to consciously shape our lives, aligned with universal forces. Polarity presents the extremes, hot and cold, love and fear, light and shadow, while vibration is the continuous movement between these extremes. Take temperature, for example. Hot and cold are not isolated qualities. They are simply names we give to represent two opposite points on the same spectrum. Temperature, by increasing or decreasing vibration, can transform cold into heat and vice versa, effectively navigating along this spectrum. This logic can be applied to any situation. Imagine you're facing financial difficulties. Instead of focusing on what's missing, complaining and adopting a victim mentality, vibrating at the frequency of scarcity, the lower end of the spectrum, you can consciously practice gratitude for what you already have and visualize prosperity as a present reality. By intentionally adjusting your vibration to the frequency of abundance, the upper end of the spectrum, you'll naturally attract opportunities aligned with the pole of prosperity. If you think this is nonsense, try it for yourself. The alchemist's laboratory is your own mind. Conduct your own experiments and then decide, based on your own experience, whether this is how reality really works. As Heraclitus said, struggle is the mother of all things. The dialectic between opposites creates movement, growth, and evolution. There's no progress without opposition, nor evolution without challenge. Life, with all its polarities, is an expression of this eternal truth. The key to true wisdom lies in understanding the necessity of opposites while transcending the idea of separation. Rather than rejecting or fighting against one pole, we must learn to integrate both sides within ourselves. The true alchemy of the soul is the ability to navigate these contrasts. When you face a challenge or difficult situation, instead of focusing exclusively on the problem, the negative pole, you can choose to see the lesson or opportunity it presents, the positive pole. This transforms adversity into fertile ground for growth and learning. Every moment in our lives offers the opportunity to experience polarity. It is present in our relationships, emotions, choices, and even in the smallest daily decisions. However, true transformation occurs when we realize that we are not at the mercy of these opposites, but co-creators of our reality. By becoming aware that everything has two polarities, we can use this as a tool to advance toward growth. True freedom arises when we understand that we are more than the poles we experience. We are the consciousness behind the polarity, able to choose which side we align with, thus shaping our reality. What are you creating in your life today? Are you choosing to feed fear or love? The process of transformation and manifestation does not only occur in grand moments, but in the small daily choices where, by balancing the opposites, we can create the harmony needed for a fuller life. By integrating and understanding the dynamics of polarity in our lives, we have the power to navigate the universe with more wisdom, freedom, and balance. The alchemy of the soul is precisely this ability to transcend the extremes, to use the dynamic between opposites to create something new and transformative. When you understand that there is no separation between the poles, but an interdependence that sustains all creation, you can begin to perceive the beauty of unity behind all dualities. Balance, harmony, and true evolution emerge when we recognize that we are both the poles and the consciousness that transcends them. The principle of rhythm. In the dance of the universe, everything follows a rhythm. Everything oscillates. Everything pulses in perfect cycles. This is the fifth Hermetic principle, the law of rhythm, a universal principle that invites us to observe the movement of the tides, the cycle of the seasons, and even the highs and lows of our lives. Understanding this law is to find harmony amidst chaos, balance amidst change. Today we will explore the secret behind this cosmic rhythm and how it manifests in all aspects of existence. Imagine the universe as an eternal dance, a continuous movement back and forth, a flow and reflux that never stops. This is rhythm, invisible yet present, subtle yet undeniable. The fifth Hermetic principle, known as the law of rhythm, teaches us that everything in the universe follows cycles. There's always an action and a reaction, an advance and a retreat, an ascent and a descent. This applies to the affairs of the universe: suns, worlds, men, animals, minds, energy, and matter. This law manifests in the creation and destruction of worlds, the rise and fall of nations, in the life of all things, and ultimately in the mental states of man. Everything flows in and out, in a pendulum-like movement that governs existence. Just like the waves of the sea, there's a moment of advancement and a moment of retreat. What rises will inevitably fall. What is born will one day dissolve. Just as there was an emanation at the beginning of all things, at some point, the universe will stop expanding as it does now and begin the reverse movement, a compensation until everything returns to its original state. This is the breath of God. The law of rhythm also governs our lives. Notice how our days oscillate between light and darkness, our emotions between joy and sadness, our moments between action and rest. It is the rhythm of life. Everything begins and ends. Understanding the law of rhythm is recognizing that nothing is permanent, neither joy nor pain. Everything is in motion. Everything is temporary. Just like the pendulum, the universe also seeks balance in its oscillations. This is the secret to universal harmony. On the vast stage of the universe, rhythm is the invisible conductor. Galaxies spin in cosmic spirals, stars are born in stellar nurseries, and die in magnificent explosions, returning to the dust of space. Every pulse of light, every movement of celestial bodies follows a cycle. Nothing is stationary. Everything dances to the beat of a universal rhythm. Look at the sky. The sun rises and sets in a perfect cycle that sustains life on Earth. The moon's phases influence the tides, fertility cycles, and even our emotions. The universe breathes, expands, and contracts as if the entire cosmos were alive. On Earth, the same principle manifests. The seasons follow in perfect harmony. Spring brings life, summer matures, autumn harvests, and winter rests. It is the eternal cycle of renewal. Just as in nature, everything in our existence is governed by cycles: ebb and flow, birth and death, inspiration and expiration. Rhythm is the signature of the whole. By observing it, we discover that change is not our enemy, but part of the dance of life. Understanding this principle aligns us with cosmic order, accepting that even the most powerful forces follow the compass of universal harmony. Rhythm is not just an external force, it is within us. Blood flows through our veins constantly, our hearts beat in a unique cadence, and our breath follows the rhythm of life. Everything vibrates in tune with this law. And what about the tides of the ocean? They advance and retreat, as if following a celestial choreography dictated by the moon. Just like the waters move in cycles, our thoughts and emotions also have their highs and lows. Nothing escapes the pendular movement of rhythm. Notice the hidden harmony in every aspect of nature. Rivers flow to the sea, but never in a chaotic manner. They follow the path shaped by gravity and terrain. Trees grow slowly in cycles of expansion and rest, respecting the seasons. Even the smallest insect in the forest lives in harmony with its environment. The law of rhythm is a reminder that the universe is not chaotic, but deeply ordered. Behind all apparent disorder, there is a precise dance, an oscillation that keeps the balance of the whole. When we look closely, we see that chaos is simply a rhythm we have not yet understood. When we align ourselves with natural cycles, we live in harmony with the universe. And just as the sun always rises after the darkest night, we can trust that after every fall, there will be a rebirth. This is the eternal pulse of creation, a truth that resonates throughout the cosmos. In our lives, rhythm also silently governs every moment. From the instant we are born, we begin dancing with the cycles of existence. Childhood fills us with energy and discovery. Youth drives us with passion and ambition. Maturity brings responsibility and reflection. And old age teaches us the wisdom of rest. Everything has its time, and each phase has its purpose. But rhythm is not only present in the great transitions of life. It manifests in our day-to-day. Some days we are full of energy, inspired, ready to conquer the world. On others we feel tired, needing silence and pause. This movement between highs and lows is natural, part of the pendulum that oscillates incessantly within us. Even our emotions obey this principle. There are moments of joy when the world seems to shine, followed by periods of sadness or unease. Resisting these oscillations is futile. Trying to remain in a permanent state, whether of happiness or stability, is like trying to stop the flow of a river. The secret lies in observing without attachment. When you are in an ascension, enjoy it, but know that it will end. When you are in a challenging period, remember that it is temporary. The tide always changes. As the Persian poet Rumi said, "This moment of difficulty will also pass." It is the pendulum of life, swinging from one extreme to another, but always returning to balance. The law of rhythm is not a punishment or a trap. It is a reminder that everything we experience is part of a larger dance. When we understand this, we stop fighting against the tides and begin to navigate with them. This is the way to harmony. Think of emotions as an invisible pendulum that continually swings between extremes. In one moment we feel joy and enthusiasm, the lightness of a heart at peace. In the next we may be overtaken by sadness, anger, or discouragement. This oscillation is a natural part of the universal cycle that governs all existence. However, most of us try to resist this movement. When we are happy, we want to freeze the moment, grab the feeling as if we could hold it forever. But the pendulum must swing. It is driven by the force of the universe itself. The more we cling to the positive side, the more intensely it swings to the opposite. This is the trick. The greater the enthusiasm, the greater the potential for melancholy. On the other hand, when we are in negative emotional states, we often fight against them, seeking immediate escape. But just as the pendulum returns to center, the challenging emotion will also pass. Resisting it is like trying to hold the waves of the sea with your hands. The key is to allow the movement to happen without resistance or attachment. Spiritual masters across all eras have taught us the same truth. Neutrality is the key. Hermes Trismegistus wrote, "The master is not a slave to the pendulum. He observes the movement, but does not let himself be carried by it." Understanding this wisdom means learning to stay at the point of balance, at the center of the pendulum. It is here that peace, resides. When you feel a strong emotion, whether good or bad, pause and observe the feeling as if you were an observer. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Where is this pendulum going? This simple practice of observation can break the cycle of automatic reaction and bring clarity. Imagine your emotions as the weather. One day it may be sunny and warm, and the next it could rain and cool down. You don't control the weather, but you can decide how to respond to it. The law of rhythm teaches us not to identify with the extremes. We are neither the storm nor the bright sun. We are the unchanging sky that observes the changes. Understanding the emotional pendulum is liberating. It is accepting that nothing lasts forever, neither moments of difficulty nor moments of ecstasy. This knowledge doesn't make us indifferent, but it makes us wiser. It allows us to enjoy the highs without losing ourselves in them and face the lows without being destroyed by them. At the center of the pendulum, we find balance, and with it, true freedom. Essentially, the law of compensation manifests as the expression of universal balance. The term compensation carries the idea of counterbalance, and this is exactly how Hermetists use the concept. When Kalyan says, "The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left," rhythm compensates. It reveals the hidden dynamics that govern all aspects of the universe, from the simplest physical experiences to the most complex manifestations of spirit. In the cosmic dance of the universe, the law of compensation acts as the guardian of balance between opposites. Simply put, movement in one direction always finds its response in the opposite direction, and so, one movement compensates for the other. The principle of cause and effect. Imagine a vast cosmic loom where each thread is woven with absolute precision, creating the grand tapestry of existence. Every event, every thought, every breath is part of this masterful design. There are no loose threads, no accidents. Everything you've ever experienced, unexpected encounters, painful challenges, moments of ecstasy, all have an origin, a cause, and every cause has its effect. Everything happens according to the law. What we call chance is, in fact, a name given to an unrecognized law. This is the law of cause and effect, the sixth Hermetic principle. This law is the principle that governs the universal loom. When we understand its depth, we realize that nothing in life is arbitrary. What we call luck or misfortune is, in fact, the effect of invisible causes that we planted in the past, sometimes in this life, other times in other dimensions of our existence. Today, we will embark together on this journey of discovery, unraveling the mysteries of the law of cause and effect, and learning how it governs our reality. More importantly, we will learn how to master it, to become architects of our own destiny. Every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to the law. Chance is simply a name for a law that is not recognized. This teaching, drawn from the Kiban, invites us to look at reality with a sharp perception, recognizing that behind the apparent chaos of the universe, there is a sublime and impeccable order. The law of cause and effect is the invisible foundation of all existence. It teaches us that every event we experience, from the greatest achievements to the most painful challenges, is the result of a chain of causes. Nothing happens by chance. Every effect we encounter is a direct reflection of causes, some visible, others hidden deep within existence. But here lies the secret understood by the initiated. There are different levels of causality. Most people operate on the physical plane, reacting to external causes, like leaves moved by the wind. They feel at the mercy of greater forces, prisoners of circumstances they believe are beyond their control. The hermetist, on the other hand, knows that the most powerful causes do not arise on the physical plane, but on the mental plane. As Kalian teaches, the mind is the field of creation, where the first seeds of every cause are planted. Our thoughts, intentions, and emotions are causal forces that shape not only our actions, but also the experiences we attract. Consider this example. A word spoken in anger may seem like a momentary reaction, but it is the effect of a prior cause, a thought or feeling that was already vibrating within you. That word, in turn, generates new effects, a conflict, a rupture, or even an opportunity for learning. Thus the chain of causality continues infinitely in all directions. What Kalian teaches us is that chance is simply the name we give to our ignorance of the law. When we understand this truth, a world of possibilities opens up. We no longer have to be spectators of life, struck by the effects of causes we don't understand. We can become conscious creators, planting the seeds of the future we wish to harvest. Imagine rolling a die. When it lands on the table and shows a number, it may seem to have happened by chance, as if it were pure luck. But in reality, things don't work that way. Everything in the world happens for a reason. Think of the die. The number that appears depends on various factors, such as how you held it, the force with which you threw it, how it spun through the air, and even the surface on which it landed. All these factors together determine the number that will appear. It's not luck or misfortune. It's a set of causes that makes it happen. The word chance is often used when we don't know or can't see all the reasons behind something. For example, when tossing a coin, it can land heads or tails. It seems random, but if we could observe exactly how the coin was tossed, the force applied, and even the wind in the air, we could predict which side would land up. Kalian uses the example of a storm to illustrate this idea. To many, a sudden storm may seem fortuitous or random. However, the formation of the storm follows precise meteorological laws, where the conditions of pressure, temperature, humidity, and other factors align specifically to produce it. With knowledge of all these conditions, the storm could be predicted accurately. Thus, what seemed like chance is nothing more than a natural event guided by precise causes. The same applies to human life. Many consider success or failure as matters of luck. However, every event in our lives is the effect of a cause, whether it's an action, a thought, or even a choice made long ago. Everything we do generates results, even if we cannot see the consequences immediately. Trying to understand the law of cause and effect only through the physical plane's movements is like looking at the tip of an iceberg and thinking it's the whole structure. It's a limited perspective. Hermetism transcends this view, revealing that causality operates simultaneously across multiple planes, mental, astral, and physical. To understand the depth of this law, we must explore its manifestations across all these dimensions. Since the times of Sir Isaac Newton, the principle of causality has been a foundation of science. Newton's third law states, "For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction." This simple idea deeply resonates with the Hermetic principle. In the physical universe, no force, movement, or event occurs without a prior cause. When an apple falls from a tree, it's the effect of gravity. When a stone hits a lake, the waves formed are the direct effect of the initial action. But modern physics has taken this concept even further. In quantum mechanics, we find that causality can operate in mysterious and seemingly paradoxical ways. Quantum entanglement, for example, suggests that particles separated by vast distances can instantly influence each other, defying our linear understanding of cause and effect. This raises the question, is there a deeper dimension where invisible causes operate beyond time and space? The Hermetists would answer with a resounding yes. They have always known that causality transcends the physical world, manifesting in more subtle levels of existence. Hermetic sages have long emphasized that causality is not merely linear, but multidimensional. This means that the cause of an event on the physical plane can originate from a thought, intention, or emotion on the mental plane. As Franz Barden explains in Initiation into Hermetics, true creation begins in the higher planes. What we see in the physical world is merely the delayed reflection of what has already been shaped in the mental and astral planes. For example, a persistent thought of fear may create tension in the physical body, leading to illness. Conversely, thoughts of love and gratitude can foster states of well-being and health. The word karma comes from the Sanskrit and literally means action. However, in a spiritual context, it refers to the totality of the consequences generated by our actions, thoughts, and intentions. Every cause we create, consciously or unconsciously, leaves a mark on the fabric of the universe, and these marks eventually return to us as effects. Here lies the secret of karma. It's not just about what we do, but how we do it. The same action can generate different karmas depending on the intention behind it. For example, helping someone with the desire to inflate one's ego generates one type of energy, while helping with true compassion generates another. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that action is inevitable, but the true wise one acts without attachment to the fruits of their actions. The law of cause and effect, in a Hermetic context, operates across all planes, physical, mental, and spiritual. Karma as the manifestation of this law as it relates to the soul's journey across multiple lifetimes. While the law of cause and effect teaches that every action leads to a reaction, karma broadens this view by showing that these reactions may not manifest immediately or even within the same lifetime. Karma thus serves as a universal balancing system, ensuring that no cause goes without its corresponding effect. One of the most striking aspects of karma is its relationship with time. While the law of cause and effect on the physical plane can produce immediate results, like touching fire and getting burned, spiritual karma operates over longer cycles. Its causes may span multiple lives, creating repetitive patterns that provide opportunities for learning and growth. These cycles are known as karmic patterns. For instance, someone who misused power in a past life may reincarnate in circumstances where they experience powerlessness, offering them a chance to learn empathy and balance. A major misconception about karma is viewing it as a system of punishment and reward. In reality, karma is an educational mechanism designed to teach us universal laws and guide our soul toward harmony. Karma doesn't return what we deserve, but rather what we need to grow, the very things we've created. It offers us the opportunity to recognize our mistakes, correct our paths, and align our lives with higher laws. The law of cause and effect and karma don't exist to imprison us, but to liberate us. When we understand their dynamics, we stop being victims of fate and become masters of our reality. As Eliphas Levi said, "He who knows the law does not complain about it. Instead, he uses it for his own purpose." We live in a world where many feel at the mercy of circumstances. Most people believe they are victims of external forces, fate, luck, or misfortune. This perception creates a sense of powerlessness, an invisible prison where the responsibility for one's destiny is handed over to something or someone outside of oneself. But the law of cause and effect offers extraordinary freedom. It reveals that we are the creators, consciously or unconsciously, of everything we experience. The first step toward mastery is to take full responsibility for your life. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for the past, but understanding that in some way you are the cause of everything you have experienced, whether through thoughts, actions, or omissions. Everything in the universe operates according to law. When we stop blaming the world and start looking within, we free ourselves from the role of victim. We become aware that every choice, thought, and action impacts the world around us and shapes what we receive in return. The true master is one who does not merely react to circumstances, but consciously creates new conditions. He observes his choices and intentionally plants the seeds he wants to harvest. Imagine your mind as a fertile field, and each thought as a seed. Thoughts of fear, doubt, or resentment will bear bitter fruits, while thoughts of courage, love, and gratitude will yield a harvest of harmony and prosperity. Franz Bardon, in Initiation into Hermetics, emphasizes that the magician works on the mental plane before any other. The mind is the first mover. What we create in the mind inevitably manifests on the material plane. By mastering the mind, you master the cause, and by mastering the cause, you master the effect. Even the wisest masters cannot escape the causes they planted in the past, but instead of resisting unwanted effects, the master embraces them as precious lessons. He understands that every challenge is an opportunity for growth and alignment with the law. Buddha said, "What you are today is the result of your thoughts yesterday. What you will be tomorrow is the result of your thoughts today." What distinguishes the master from the victim is not the absence of challenges, but how he faces them. The master sees the effects in his life not as punishments or rewards, but as perfect reflections of his own actions and intentions. He understands that life doesn't happen to him, but through him. By mastering the law of cause and effect, you become free. Not a freedom that escapes the law, for that is impossible, but a freedom that arises from alignment with it. You become the conscious creator of your reality, a true alchemist transforming each moment into an opportunity for evolution and self-mastery. As the Kalian teaches, freedom lies in understanding the law. From this point, the question we must ask is, what seeds are we planting today? Are we creating the reality we desire, or perpetuating patterns that imprison us? The answer lies in your hands. Be the master. The principle of gender. Imagine a small seed, seemingly inert and almost insignificant, until it is placed in the soil. But something magical happens when the seed, carrying within it the masculine principle of potential, encounters the fertile soil, which represents the feminine principle of nourishment and receptivity. Together they begin a process that transforms something seemingly simple into a majestic tree full of life and purpose. This natural phenomenon is a perfect manifestation of the law of gender, the seventh of the Hermetic principles, Just as the seed and soil interact, everything in the universe, including our minds and spirits, depends on the interaction and balance between masculine and feminine energies to create, transform, and manifest. In this exploration, we'll see how this universal law applies to all aspects of existence, from the physical to the spiritual, revealing the secrets of how these two opposing yet complementary forces work together to sustain all creation. The law of gender is one of the deepest of the 7 Hermetic principles. It transcends the common understanding of masculine and feminine, connecting to a universal dynamic of polarities that permeates all of creation. At the heart of this law is the understanding that everything in the universe contains 2 complementary principles, the masculine and the feminine. These are not just biological or social aspects, but archetypal forces that shape the functioning of all existence. The masculine represents active, expansive, and projective energy. It is the creative impulse, the initiating will, the spark that sets movement in motion. It is like the sunbeam touching the earth, without which life could not germinate. The feminine symbolizes receptive, nurturing, and generative energy. It is the fertile soil that transforms a seed into a tree. It embodies introspection, intuition, and the capacity to create from within. These forces are not opposites in the sense of conflict, but are complementary, like 2 halves of a whole that together create universal harmony. Masculine energy is not exclusive to men, just as feminine energy is not exclusive to women. These forces are universal, residing in all beings and constantly interacting within us. In Hermetic context, masculine energy is the active principle, movement, logic, direction, and creative force. It is the spark that turns potential into reality. Without it, there is no action, and without action, there is no creation. But like any universal principle, masculine energy requires balance. When in harmony, it is like a stream flowing, moving mountains and fertilizing lands. When unbalanced, it can become a destructive tsunami. Masculine energy is often symbolized by the sun, the sword, or the lightning bolt. These archetypes represent its nature. It brings discernment and reason, light and clarity, illuminating the way ahead. It provides us with the motivation to overcome obstacles and face challenges with strength and courage. Like an arrow aimed at its target, it is the force that keeps us focused on our goals. This energy is associated with the left hemisphere of the brain, which governs logical reasoning, analysis, and strategy. When properly channeled, it makes us achievers. In Carl Jung's analytical psychology, masculine energy appears in archetypes such as the warrior, with courage and discipline, reminding us that strength is not only physical, but also the determination to face challenges. The king, symbolizing leadership and integrity, guides with wisdom and creates stability. The magician, who transforms knowledge into power, represents the logic and curiosity of the masculine spirit. The lover, who channels passion to create and nurture meaningful connections. These archetypes are facets of the masculine that we must integrate in balance to access our full potential. When masculine energy loses its balance, the signs are clear. The individual attempts to dominate everything and everyone, believing that their vision is the only correct one. This authoritarianism manifests in rigid attitudes, leaving no room for listening or adapting. This behavior suffocates relationships, blocks creativity, and creates a constant atmosphere of tension. The desire to compete becomes an addiction. Everything turns into a battle to prove superiority, even when unnecessary. In excessive competition, this mentality generates isolation, turning allies into rivals. Logic takes total control, silencing all emotions. This can lead to a feeling of emptiness, as if the person is in a constant struggle against the world without understanding why. On the other hand, when masculine energy is lacking, certain problems arise. The potential is present, but the strength to realize it is missing. The individual feels unable to act, postponing decisions and responsibilities, leading to procrastination and apathy. Days pass without purpose, like a boat drifting, and without masculine drive, there is no clear purpose. Life becomes a series of meaningless actions, resulting in frustration and a sense of futility. This leads to insecurity and passivity. The lack of confidence in one's power leads to dependence on others for decision-making. Instead of leading, the individual becomes a spectator in their own life. The person shows fragility when facing challenges. Masculine energy gives us the courage to face difficulties. Without it, even small obstacles become insurmountable barriers. The masculine energy is like fire, heating and transforming. When balanced, it guides us with courage, clarity, and purpose. It's not just a force of creation, but also of protection, leadership, and inspiration. Nurturing this energy is an act of self-love, acknowledging the divine power within each of us. On the other hand, the feminine energy is the receptive, fluid, and intuitive aspect of all things. It manifests in the right hemisphere of our brain, deeply connected to feelings, tenderness, intuition, attention to detail, perceptions, receptivity, ancient wisdom, compassion, patience, lightness, creativity, and art. This force exists in everyone, regardless of biological gender, serving as one of the fundamental poles of universal balance. While the masculine energy moves forward like an arrow, the feminine energy is the space that embraces, transforms, and gives meaning to action. In Hermeticism, feminine energy is the passive principle, but not in the sense of inertia. Passivity here refers to receptivity, the ability to absorb, nurture, and transform. It's the mystery, the intuition that connects us to the invisible, the force that helps us form bonds and feel the flow of life in its fullness. This energy shows itself in moments of pause, inner listening, and compassion. It allows us to understand without words, feel beyond reason, and create from nothing. A clear example of feminine energy in nature is the lunar cycle. The moon, with its phases of growth and decline, symbolizes the fluidity, receptivity, and transformation that define feminine energy. Just as the moon influences the tides, feminine energy has an invisible, yet deeply impactful power, governing cycles and processes. During the waxing of the new moon to the full moon, we see the capacity for embracing and nurturing, while in the waning cycle, from the full moon to the new moon, we notice the power of introspection and renewal. This cycle reflects the essence of the feminine, to create, transform, and rest in perfect harmony with the natural rhythm. Jung identified archetypes in the collective unconscious that represent aspects of feminine energy. The mother, nurturing, protective, the source of life and security. This archetype embodies the ability to care for, nourish, and protect, both physically and emotionally. In nature, this is seen in animals caring for their offspring, or in fertile land that sustains us. The maiden represents youth, potential, innocence, and curiosity. She is creative energy and the beginning of new cycles. She symbolizes purity and enthusiasm for life, bringing a renewing energy like spring, when everything blooms and new beginnings become possible. The witch represents introspection and accumulated life knowledge, guiding and illuminating with profound wisdom, like the waning moon that brings stillness and moments of reflection. The queen, combining leadership with a nurturing heart, is just, compassionate, wise, and balanced, representing feminine energy at its peak. However, like the masculine energy, feminine energy can also become unbalanced, manifesting in harmful ways, whether in excess or deficiency. When feminine energy is excessive, we lose our center and are overtaken by emotions without the structure needed to face challenges. Everything becomes overwhelming, minor problems are amplified, and there's a tendency to drown in feelings like sadness, anxiety, or fear. There's a lack of boundaries. Extreme receptivity leads to an inability to say no. People, ideas, and situations enter our lives indiscriminately, causing overload or victimization. The person feels trapped by circumstances, unable to take control, and begins blaming external factors for their situation. When feminine energy is deficient, we lose connection with our creative and nurturing essence, leading to a disconnection from intuition. We struggle to hear ourselves or understand what others feel. The person becomes rigid, pulling away from the natural flow of life. Ideas stop coming. The inner world feels barren, and the joy of creating or nurturing fades. Without feminine energy, empathy fades, and the person becomes distant and cold. When feminine energy is balanced, the benefits become evident in various areas of life. There's greater empathy, the ability to listen and understand others without overwhelming relationships with unrealistic expectations or emotional dependencies. There's a reconnection with intuition. The power of feminine energy lies in its ability to generate life, connect deeply with others, and create from nothing, like Mother Earth, who gives and nourishes. When balanced, it's a source of wisdom, creativity, and inner peace, allowing the flow of life and the ability to adapt to challenges with serenity and strength. Its true power lies in its gentleness and the capacity to perceive and transform the world from within. The law of gender transcends humanity and permeates the entire universe, from vast cosmic expansions to microscopic processes. It is the force that governs creation and movement. To understand this law fully, we must observe its manifestations in different areas of existence, where the active and receptive masculine and feminine principles work together to create, transform, and sustain. The law of gender is not confined to the visible world or the physical plane. According to Kaiban, it's a force that spans all levels of existence, manifesting uniquely and complementarily in the three great planes: the physical, mental, and spiritual. Each plane reflects this dance between masculine and feminine principles, demonstrating how the universe is governed by the harmony of polarities. In the plant kingdom, the interaction between masculine and feminine energies is essential for the perpetuation of life. The male pollen is carried by the wind or insects to the ovary of the female flowers, where fertilization occurs, resulting in fruits and seeds. Many animals display mating rituals reflecting this dance of polarities: the male, the active principle, and the female, who chooses and nurtures, ensuring the continuity of the species. In the grand theater of existence, the relationship between masculine and feminine principles is like a cosmic dance, where each plays an indispensable role in creation. The masculine principle is responsible for directing energy, acting as the initial force that awakens and activates the creative potential of the feminine principle. However, it's the feminine, in its essence, that performs the act of creation. This dynamic manifests in all planes of existence, whether physical, mental, or spiritual. The feminine is the matrix that transforms impulse into form, giving life to what was once just a possibility. And yet neither can act alone. The masculine, as powerful as it is, cannot produce results without the receptive feminine. And the feminine, no matter how fertile, lacks the creative impulse provided by the masculine. This union is reflected in the very structure of life, in many forms of existence. Both principles are integrated into a single being, coexisting as inseparable parts of a whole. This is why, in all aspects of the organic world, we find the masculine within the feminine and the feminine within the masculine, like yin and yang, dancing in eternal harmony. Within each human being, there exists a sun and a moon, a king and a queen. When both dance in harmony, the soul flourishes. The balance between masculine and feminine energies within us is the key to achieving harmony, creating a powerful magnetic field capable of attracting all we desire into our lives. Ancient alchemists called this union the alchemical marriage, symbolizing the fusion of the active masculine and receptive feminine principles to create a whole and awakened being. This inner marriage is the key to transforming the ordinary self into a bright and fulfilled version of oneself. The alchemical marriage is not merely a metaphor, but a spiritual and psychological practice, referring to the process of integrating internal opposites. Masculine energy represents logic, action, and focus, while feminine energy symbolizes intuition, receptivity, and creativity. Together they form the perfect unity, like yin and yang in Taoism, where each force contains a bit of the other. To achieve balance, it's essential to recognize which of these two energies you perceive most strongly in your life. This reveals which internal energy is dominating at the moment. Now let's explore some simple practices to help balance these energies within you. Dance and physical movement. A dance is a symbolic and physical practice that balances both energies. Dance freely, allowing your body to flow with the rhythm of the music, feminine. Then incorporate deliberate, rhythmic movements, masculine. Cultivate intuition and action. Integrate moments of introspection with concrete actions. Take time to listen to your intuition, feminine, before acting, but plan your steps clearly, masculine, to manifest your intentions. Work with internal archetypes. The masculine and feminine principles can be seen as archetypes, such as the king and queen or the warrior and the wise one. Ask yourself which internal archetype needs strengthening and visualize yourself incorporating its qualities into your daily life. Integrating these energies isn't just a spiritual practice. It's something you can apply in your routine. See how to balance them in different areas of life. At work, use your masculine energy to organize tasks and achieve goals, but trust your feminine energy to find creative and intuitive solutions. In relationships, let the masculine lead with courage and protection, while the feminine nurtures, listens, understands, and embraces. In spirituality, seek the divine with discipline and devotion, masculine, but also with surrender and trust, feminine. In esoteric traditions, the alchemical marriage is often represented by the union of archetypes, like the marriage between the king and queen in medieval alchemy. This symbol reminds us that true union doesn't happen outside of us, but within us. When we recognize that all polarities exist within our own soul, the union of masculine and feminine is not the meeting of opposing forces, but the merging of what we already are. It's the moment we cease to be fragments and become the whole. Thank you for watching.